Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette, a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast. Thanks for joining us as we recap and review one of the 200 existing Walker, Texas Ranger episodes randomly selected by Roundhouse Roulette. I'm Evan Dalton, here with my brother Adam. Adam, could you just give me a little bit of your backstory into how you got into podcasting? When did it all start?
I never thought I'd be a podcaster, but...
And we have Bob Leahy.
Hello.
We'd like to thank you all for joining us as we watch Walker go all lone wolf again. Today we're going to recap and review Season 8, Episode 22, Showdown at Casa Diablo, Part 2, the thrilling conclusion, where Walker and his fellow Rangers head south of the border for some much-needed vacation time. But before we put on our mariachi costumes and head on down to our next gig at the local drug kingpin's mansion, join us as we pull up a stool at CD's Bar and Grill. Oh, hey guys.
What's going on?
There might be some time for our backstory in this segment, but definitely not in the last one.
The last episode ended on a cliffhanger, and let's just say that Alex and Sydney, they went on an extended vacation to Mexico.
I'd say they did, but they didn't quite hit the beaches of Cancun.
No.
In keeping with that, CD has procured quite the appropriate beverage for this episode, I'd say.
He sure has. This might be the only beer can I've seen with a fanny pack on it.
Oh, yeah.
The can is wearing a Hawaiian shirt and has a fanny pack. So there you go. This is an extended vacation blueberry ale from the Black Abbey Brewing Company in Nashville, Tennessee. The Bar and Grill menu describes this as such. Blueberry puree added during fermentation brings a beautiful purple color, subtle blueberry flavor, and clean, dry finish.
I think it's color, Evan. I think that's what it was. Okay.
I don't know.
All
We're on vacation. We could be anywhere.
right. When in Rome. Okay.
Or France. 6.5% ABV will sneak up on you. So keep your lawn chair handy, get that Hawaiian shirt on, and get ready for your vacation to get extended.
I'm ready.
I wasn't really on a vacation, but I am now.
Let's do this.
I'm going to take myself a permanent vacation.
Ooh. Oh, look at this purple Kahlua. All you podcast listeners, look at this beer.
Yeah, really.
It's definitely one of the best looking beers we've had on the podcast, for sure.
The head is like pink.
Yeah. It looks like a grape soda.
Pink is my new obsession.
Oh,
boy.
no.
Okay.
Oh, no.
We're going there. Is it your favorite color?
I think it was love at first sight, honestly.
I think it's pronounced Kahlua, but...
Let's dig into this one. I'm going for it. That's refreshing.
I could imagine this definitely would sneak up on you. It doesn't really taste like a beer, per se. It tastes like a fizzy smoothie.
Yeah, I dig it.
So, what's going on here?
Yeah, well, so Bob, you texted me this week. You hit me to the fact that Conan O'Brien, on his podcast, Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, talks about the Walker, Texas Ranger lever.
He was interviewing Joel McHale, and I don't remember how it came up. They were talking about he was on a live show tour and how popular the Walker, Texas Ranger lever was. But then he went into the reasons why they had to stop doing it, which was basically the producers were like, yeah, the actors that are in this are going to start like complaining and suing or demanding that we pay them. So you can't do it anymore.
Yeah. And so that's why they stopped doing it. And apparently it was so popular that he went out and did his road tour, and they were in Seattle, okay? And they got Eddie Vedder to open up the show acoustic, and he ends it. Everyone's going crazy because it's Seattle, small theater, Eddie Vedder. And Conan's backstage, and he's like, how are we going to top this? I'm worried about, now I got to go out and do a show after that. And he looked at the list, and he's like, oh, what do we got up next? The Walker lever. I'm good.
Yeah. I think, didn't he say Andy Richter? Andy Richter's like, let's do the Walker lever.
And sure enough, everyone just loved to yell, pull it, pull it. And for people who don't know, around the time we were in college, this was huge. Conan had this lever that was loaded with Walker Texas Ranger clips, just random stuff. So you never knew quite what you were going to get. And the audience on his show would just yell, pull it, even interrupting guests on his show, his whole late night talk show. So he'd get at least like 3 clips in a night while he was doing this.
It was basically if you take the most ridiculous 15 seconds from a Walker episode out of context.
Yeah, I wonder what the one from this episode would be. I guess we'll have to get there, but
I'd have to check my notes.
Some options.
Yeah, there's some
definitely some options.
Good picks for sure.
Yeah, this episode was loaded with some Conan clips, but anyway, just classic. Some people have taped his old broadcasts and they put it up on YouTube, and it's fun just to go watch him showing the best bits of Walker. So we'll put a link to one of those on this episode page for sure. Also, we mentioned on a previous podcast that he has another podcast, Inside Conan, which is the people who work on the show. And it's actually, I found that to be pretty interesting, everything that goes in behind it, and they're all pretty funny. But they interviewed Andrew Weinberg, who was the guy who had to go through all the Walker episodes and come up with the clips. We'll put a link to that podcast as well up on this episode page for you to check out. He also went on to write the spoof on Walker, Eagleheart, which is insane. But
you think his brain was poisoned by watching so many hours of Walker Texas Ranger that he had to write that show?
Maybe. I think he was trying to justify all the time he put into watching all those clips. Maybe.
I think his brain was rotted to the core.
We definitely can't speak to that.
Yeah, give us a couple more years of this. Maybe a few more episodes. I don't know.
We also heard from our friend Mike Rooney. He had sent us something that we kind of have to dig into here on the podcast, a video that he kind of questioned if they stole it from Walker. And what did he send, Evan?
I just watched it. It's unbelievable. Oh, my God.
Let's do a group watch here.
All right, this is...
Explain it first what the title is.
The title of the Reddit article is... That time the Hulk yeeted a bear so hard that it became a constellation.
All right, I'm gonna group share this. Let's see how this goes.
The bear's biting him. Okay, they're in a river right now, and the Hulk just punched a bear. The bear is coming back. It's about to retaliate. Lou Ferrigno's green body is now submerged underwater. There's an old guy
What?
what?
How is that a real thing?
Guys, we just learned a little bit of mythology just then.
So wait, this was a show. I don't know a lot about Marvel.
Yeah. So this was what was it, in the late 70s, early 80s? Professional bodybuilder Lou Ferrigno was brought in as the Hulk equivalent to a Bruce Banner for a TV show that lasted several seasons and probably deserves its own podcast, right?
Someone needs to, yeah. Someone who's really into Lou Ferrigno needs to do this, but I'm getting there after that clip.
Yeah,
like he literally picks up a bear, throws it.
He picks up a stuffed bear costume.
Yeah, they show the stuffed bear like go off camera, and then it hurtles into space. It goes like up into the stars. It has like a weird explosion, and then it traces out a shape of a constellation.
I believe the constellation is Ursa Major, which is the Great Bear. So there you go.
And then they overlay a video of the bear's face growling. unbelievable.
It looks like a mountain shirt when that happens.
It does. It does.
Yeah. That is insane.
I mean, considering this happened before Walker could have stolen it.
There is some borrowing back and forth for sure, and TV tropes were definitely a thing, so it's possible.
Walker fights a bear at least twice in Walker, Texas Ranger. So
neither time does Walker pick the bear up and throw it, though. So still waiting to see that.
And he doesn't throw it that far, let alone into space and
correct.
Seemingly to another galaxy. I think
doesn't play space pinball with a bear.
Well, I mean, Walker Texas Ranger is a little more of a grounded TV show.
Yeah, it's
a little more based in reality.
Based in fact.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Mike says, when I'm not listening to my hardcore history, fantasy football, or pennies going in raw podcast, I don't know what that is, I catch up on yours. I'm not going to lie, when I hear friend of the podcast and superfan Mike Rooney reached out and had this to say, I get real nervous and think, oh shit, what did I drunk text Adam this time?
Well, this time it was gold, Mike.
Yeah,
Just gold.
I think you need to keep the extended vacation going, Mike, because that Hulk was amazing, and we'll definitely be sharing that on the socials. Last but not least here, as this is a two-parter, I thought it only right that we dig into our Walkerstrator and friend of show, Adam Laurison's last Walkerstration from part 1 of Showdown at Casa Diablo. Evan, what do we got here?
So we've got Walker dispatching of a goofy lunatic, but we also have Sydney in her fatigues choking out.
It was just a random goon, but
no. But when the drug guys came to drop off, they're like, "You're not." It's probably like Paco. Let's face it.
Yeah.
They're like, "You're not Paco," and Paco was the guy that Sydney choked out, and he had a pretty sick eye patch.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think we missed talking about his sick eye patch, so I am so glad that he captured that for posterity in Walkerstration form.
Yeah, I mean, the level of ass-kickery dealt out by the Texas Rangers is non-discriminatory against those with 2 eyes, or 0. Yeah. I'm sure we'll see them take out a blind person at some point.
Yeah, I mean, justice just needs 1 eye to see.
Yeah.
So this will be up on our social media. Be sure to check out all his Walkerstrations. Adam's awesome.
All right, well, we've got a lot to cover this week, so let's get on into it. If you're watching along at home and don't want any spoilers, hit that pause button and watch Season 8, Episode 22, Showdown at Casa Diablo Part 2. Like you didn't already watch it after seeing the first cliffhanger, right?
How could
and
you
come
not?
on, and then come right on back to us, okay?
Yeah, once you pop, you can't stop.
Welcome back. Let's dig into this beast. This episode originally aired on May 6th in the year 2000. And it opens...
the year 2000!
In the year 2000! Perfect.
And it opens right at Ranger Headquarters Situation Room.
Yeah, we hit the ground running. Did you guys... Was it just me, or was the recording weird? Like, we didn't have a...
There was no intro.
I was expecting at least a 5-minute recap of the last episode, but
awesome.
It's an easy use of time. You do the recap, then you go to the credits. Just like went right to the credits.
Which makes sense because most of the plot of the previous episode means nothing.
That's true. Yeah.
And the last episode, if you didn't listen to this podcast or watch the last episode, I'll do you a favor. Walker's fiance, Alex Cahill, the district attorney, has been kidnapped along with Texas Ranger Sidney Cook and a couple of other people from Alex's office. They went on a trip to Mexico and were kidnapped for ransom by a crazy drug lord. That's all we know. Yeah.
Who could have seen that coming? It's like...
Yep. Oh, yeah. And the Texas Rangers actually have his brother in custody, and Cruz Ortega, the drug lord, is saying, hey, release my brother. Let's do a little swapsy here.
So, in the Situation Room, we've got about 40 people in there. The Texas Rangers are there, but, it's the feds who are in charge. And how many times have we seen this, right?
Just going up the works.
Right, where the feds just don't know what the heck they're doing. And so they're like, well, okay, Cruz Ortega, who's this drug lord, who's pretty nasty with a knife, as we know from last episode and this episode. He's going to exchange the DA, this random woman named Mary Infantano, Alex and Sydney. He's going to release them in exchange for his brother Ramon. So, all right, we're going to go do it. And Walker just pipes up from the crowd and just says he won't keep his word.
Walker is like taking a back seat at this meeting. I'm like, he's kind of, fly on the wall kind of thing here in this situation, right?
Mm-hmm. Very unlike him. Very beta.
Exactly.
Well, his fiance's been kidnapped. He's a little shell shocked. He's a little compromised.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
So he's like, he won't keep his word, and the feds are like, why wouldn't he keep his word? He just wants his brother back.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah.
So we believe he'll keep his word.
Mexican drug lord, he's good for him.
Yeah, he's good for it. So they end up meeting at this random bridge, which we assume is a bridge over the Rio Grande.
Right. It's got to be at the border, right?
With no border patrol, though? It seems like a weird place.
No, it's just some random bridge where Ortega is on one side with his limo and his goons. And, it's like 2 or 3 goons with guns. And he's like, oh, send my brother over. And they're like, no, you send the hostages. He's like, okay, I'll send the first 2 hostages, then my brother. And then I'll send the second 2, I promise. And so he sends the 2 expendable people who we've never seen before.
Of course they're not going to send Alex or Sydney across. They're the 2 people we've never seen before.
Right. The district attorney and Mary Infantano, whom I'm sure is critical in her role at the DA's office, but we will never know that.
And honestly, is this the first time we've actually seen the district attorney that Alex works for?
Before last episode, maybe. He was in the last episode too, but yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like,
it's possible, yeah.
I still don't remember his name, but
it doesn't matter.
It's irrelevant.
Okay.
Completely irrelevant. Before they send Cruz's brother Ramon over the border, Walker bristles a bit, and he's like, no, you send Alex and Sydney over, or else you don't get your brother. And the FBI agent's like, Walker, stand down. This is my operation, and he'll send them. We'll send this guy across. And Walker's pretty pissed and doesn't want any of this to happen. And he just wants Alex and Sydney back, obviously. But predictably, Ramon gets sent across. And then, amazingly, Cruz Ortega, he keeps 2 hostages.
Alex and Sydney.
And he shouts across, Walker, you want them?
Come and get
them.
I said it along with the TV. I just knew it was good. But it was so obvious.
And then the Fed is like, we had a deal. There were so many great ones.
Right. But he shouts, we had a deal as Cruz is driving away.
Yeah.
And as soon as Cruz drives away, like, I counted them. I paused and counted them.
Okay, good, because this was
14 dudes with machine guns just line the entire end of the bridge, the Mexican side of the bridge.
Yeah.
And it's like, 1, how did they get there?
Yeah.
And 2, how are they getting home?
Yeah, like
the only car drove away.
Right when Walker was going to rush the bridge and go after the limousine, Cruz's goons, like 14 of them, just show up out of nowhere, all with like semi-automatic weapons. And it's kind of like, ooh, okay.
Yep, there will be no pursuit. There will be no pursuit.
Not even from Walker. That's how many guys it takes with semi-automatic weapons for the bad guy to get away.
Yeah.
In a Walker episode.
It was effective. And so the district attorney's like, oh, I'm so sorry, Walker. He wanted me to give you this. And he hands him a VHS tape. Yeah. Of course, the FBI's got a sick, Intel van right there. It's soundproofed and everything.
Which is probably the audio van for filming Walker Texas Ranger.
Yeah, totally.
That's what it looked like to me.
Could be.
I saw some BNC connectors in there. Some real high-tech stuff.
Yep, and all this like foam padding on all the surfaces, and you see Walker. I'm like, oh, is he he's laying down some hot tracks.
They did VOs in there. That's probably their VO booth.
Oh, you're right. That's probably what it is. It's like, while we got you here, Chuck, let's film the scene.
Yeah.
Well, they bring all the actors in and they watch this 3-minute tape of Cruz Ortega, he's just like smoking a cigar, hanging out in his mansion.
In Mexico.
And he essentially just says the same thing because the line's too good. He says, "You want them? Come get them."
Yeah, exactly. Like this, he literally just said the thing to him personally. Then he hands a videotape to him saying the same thing.
Yeah.
That's a baller move.
Ultimate power move. Yeah.
It really rubs it in.
Yeah. What I said to you in person.
Yeah. And I bet you, Cruz Ortega, I bet you that tape wasn't rewound. I bet you Walker had to rewind it.
Oh, that's cold. That
Rough.
is cold.
Rough.
I mean, three of us, we understand what that means. The disrespect.
Well, initially when they put it in, it was overdubbed episodes of Full House.
Yeah, so you had to sit through it and wait.
Yep, dubbed in Spanish, and they're like, wait, this isn't what he really intended. Let's rewind it all the way.
Yeah. They're like, unless. Then they watched the whole Full House episode dubbed in Spanish.
Full Casa Diablo.
Yeah, I don't know what
nice,
full is.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Something like that. Okay.
Anyways, super dramatic film, and everyone's like, well, what are we going to do? It's Walker, Trevette, and Gage in this soundproof van with the FBI guy. The FBI guy's like, well, we just do what we always do. We've got to negotiate. And Walker gives him a steely glance with zero emotion whatsoever, grabs his throat and says, "Negotiate this."
Oh! I love that.
And the guy up against the wall of the trailer by his neck.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then he lets go and walks out, and the guy's like, "You guys saw that? He just intimidated a federal officer."
Yeah, he assaulted me.
Yeah, he assaulted a federal officer. And Gage and Sydney Trevette and Gage are like, yeah, I didn't see anything.
Yeah, sorry. No, me neither.
Yeah, yep. That was classic.
Meanwhile, Sydney and Alex, they're taken to their new digs. And honestly, they're treated pretty well. They're basically put in like a luxury hotel room.
We should say their new digs is
Casa Diablo.
Casa Diablo, is that the firehouse?
That's the house of the devil.
Oh, nice. Even better.
So, they're handcuffed to the headboards of the bed, but, they're basically just like hanging out there. Of course, Sydney is always prepared. And even though her hair's down, she's got a hairpin in. And so she takes out that hair. Right. She takes out that hairpin and she is going to pick open these handcuffs.
Yeah. And I was like, oh man, if she gets these handcuffs with a hairpin right away, that's not believable. And to the show's credit, she doesn't. She drops that hairpin and it falls under the bed.
Yeah, Alex is like, you know how to do that? She's like, we'll find out.
Right.
What do you mean to the shows? To the shows, if the show were up to snuff, she'd crack out of those things in 2 seconds. Walker would with a hairpin, right? He's a dude. But she's a woman, so she tried using a hairpin and she drops it under the bed. And so for the next 20 minutes of this episode, she's trying to fish it out from under the bed.
They go to other scenes, they come back, she's still trying to get it.
Yeah.
The guys come into the room, she's like, oh, no, I was doing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's reaching under the bed trying to get the hairpin so that she can resume trying to get the handcuffs off. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, Evan, as we talked about earlier when we were talking about Lou Ferrigno's Hulk throwing a bear into space, there's an element of realism in Walker, Texas Ranger, which is why she didn't get it the first time.
I would have rather she threw a bear into space myself, but hey.
Well, we haven't finished talking about the rest of this episode, Bob.
Yeah, it's true. It could happen. Yeah, it could happen.
We never know.
Yeah. Well, for those of you curious about whether or not you can, in fact, pick a set of handcuffs with a hairpin, I have put an instructional video on how to do this on our website. And it is an instructional video by a lovely YouTube character known as the Crazy Russian Hacker. So please do enjoy. And I am not responsible if you fall down an endless YouTube hole looking at all of the Crazy Russian Hackers videos. So there you go.
It sounds like you did. And Evan, when we do our first live episode of Roundhouse Roulette, you are going to be taxed of escaping out of handcuffs with a hairpin. And that's going to make a riveting podcast.
The podcast is going to be like hours long.
Just imagine the Foley art on that.
Okay. I'll get practicing. I do not own a pair of handcuffs and don't really want to buy one. So
you have to get the real police ones too. You can't get like the knockoffs.
Right. Yeah. Because they definitely.
Oh yeah. Because they were definitely using real ones in the episode. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the implication is they were. I mean, I don't know.
All right, this is happening. This is going to be a feature, and it might be a long podcast, so we'll see.
I may never be able to escape.
He might drop the hairpin under the stage.
Okay.
Guys, let's get back into it here because the next scene, he has to go back to talk to his boss.
Yeah, this is like the first time we see Walker who has a boss.
Right?
He's never had a boss before.
It's the classic, like, captain, right? It's the it's the stuff that we saw in like Lone Wolf McQuade. Mm-hmm. You know, he goes into the boss and he's like, yeah, I heard something about you, assaulting this federal agent, and something tells me that you're gonna go. If I tell you not to go to Mexico, like you're gonna do it. So I'm not gonna tell you not to go to Mexico.
It's like, no.
It's like,
and then he's like,
this cop thing. Oh man, this is amazing.
And he's like, and good luck out there.
Yeah, not that I know anything about what you're doing because I don't.
I love the fact that that this guy's supposed to be like really old and grizzled, to be like his superior and everything like that. But the actor who plays this guy, David S. Hager, is actually 4 years younger than Chuck Norris.
He doesn't show.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, he probably didn't, but he has been using the total gym every day. I think that's a problem.
Yeah, for sure. So, we get this and it's like basically torn completely from the plot of Lone Wolf McQuade.
Yeah, in fact, I think like Trevette comes in with a one-liner and goes, well, he's a lone wolf.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dang lone wolf attitude again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Exactly.
Because Trevette and Gage, once he comes out of the supervisor's office, they're like, oh, well, we're coming with you. And he's like, no, you're not. I'm doing it alone. And then he leaves. We get the sense that Trevette and Gage are probably going to tag along at some point.
Right.
So, cut to a lovely campfire in Mexico, we assume. We only assume that because there's really upbeat, like, children's birthday party Mexican music playing in the background.
Right.
So they're really into that. They do that several times in this episode. I guess to set the mood and to let us know that it's in Mexico. And these guys around the campfire are like, this Walker guy, there's no way he's going to come and get us. He's not going to come into Mexico. And this other guy's like, I don't know, man. He's pretty tough, but we'll take him out. And I remember seeing this episode, or seeing this scene at least, a while back, and it holds up. Walker basically just walks in. He's like, oh, hey, guys. And he sits down, grabs himself a cup of coffee.
Right.
And they're all in disbelief, like, what? They're like, you're a dead man. There's no way you're going to take us out alone. And then Trevette comes in. He's like, he's not alone. And then Gage is there too out of nowhere. And it's like, okay, how did 3 grown men sneak up on a group of 6 guys sitting around a fire in the middle of the day?
Yeah. And then so they all roughhouse. Walker throws a hot pot of coffee on a guy. He screams at the top of his lungs.
That's great.
Excellent.
Gage and Trevette take out a few guys. And then, we're just left looking at the carnage there. But Walker looks a little PO'd that Trevette and Gage came with him. And the takeaway is they snuck up on Walker.
Yeah, like he didn't know they were behind him, so I don't think that was intentional.
That doesn't track with Walker mythos here.
No, it does not.
Also, another part of Walker mythos that's really weird, right after they help him, he pulls out this object from his pocket, and it's like a piece of paper with directions and like landmarks written on it.
Yeah, it's like shapes that indicate like your surroundings.
Is it called a
I think it's called a map. I've never seen him use one before though, so it seemed really weird.
He's in Mexico though.
Yeah.
If he was in Texas, he doesn't need a map.
But he's in Nuevo Laredo. I mean, that's a border town. He'd know that town. Come on.
Yeah.
He's losing it.
I got to hit pause here too, because this scene, Evan, you might not be remembering this scene. There's an earlier episode of Walker where there's a bunch of cowboys around a fire, and it's at night.
I think that's the one I'm thinking of.
And the same thing happens, but it's Walker alone. He sits down and pours himself some coffee, takes out all the cowboys by himself.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
This one, not as impressive.
This was kind of a nod back to that, or just a lazy reuse.
Yeah. Or they forgot they had already used something like this.
Something in between.
Yeah.
A retread.
Yeah.
back at Casa Diablo, Sydney's still reaching underneath the bed trying to get this hairpin back. And she finally gets the hairpin, picks the handcuffs open, then is immediately caught.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have a plan. Granted, I mean, pretty much Sydney knows karate.
She fights like a man, according to this TV show.
And I guess that's a compliment?
I don't know. I'm not going to interpret that. That's just what they said.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger.
Yep. So yeah, she basically gets out, but then immediately the Ortegas walk in and I believe punch her in the face. And they're like, "Oh, how did you get out?" And then she, at gunpoint, shows them the hairpin. And they take the hairpin, and then they basically just lock her to the bed again using the same handcuffs.
A few things that we kind of need to get in here. The brother of Cruz Ortega, what's his name?
His name is Ramon.
He's kind of the one in these situations who's like, "Oh, you're a resourceful girl."
You know what he is? He's a wild card. That's what he is.
Okay. Yeah.
He's the wild card. Totally.
Oh, for sure.
Unpredictable.
Yep.
Totally
He's a loose cannon.
Loose cannon. Yep.
Even though Cruz Ortega himself, the knife-throwing crazy drug lord, owner of Casa Diablo, is also, pretty crazy.
He's a wild
too.
card. It's
He's
the
pretty wild
Ortegas.
too,
They're a family of wild cards.
Yeah. I mean, in the last episode, they had a shot of Cruz Ortega like brushing his horse, looking that horse in the eye, and you're like, I don't know what he's going to do with this horse. Please change the scene.
Yeah, get me out of here.
Yeah.
I think later on in the scene they edited it out, but he just threw a knife at it.
And it was a white horse. Can you imagine a bleeding white horse?
Okay.
Yeah, mess.
Yeah, we're really getting
mess.
off topic
I just
here.
gotta say, nay, nay, nay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I wish I was
they,
editing so I could cut that out.
the Ortega brothers, they have some sense of decency in that they don't really want to deal with any of these womanly things. And they've got a woman who is clearly their hostage there named Maria, who we're led to believe is some sort of local who's been kidnapped and is now their servant. And they're like, well, Maria's going to check you to make sure you don't have any more like hairpins or something.
Right, yeah.
And then she's going to feed you. Do you have any food allergies?
It's like having your own personal butler, really.
And from last episode, it would appear that Maria has filled in the role of the inside agent that they had there that was actually murdered by a throwing knife in the last episode. Anyways, back to Gage, Trevette, and Walker. They have now stolen the beat-up pickup truck from the original group of bad guys. They're driving it into town, and it is a beat-up old...
It's a Ford.
It's a Ford.
Yeah, with the back windows blown out, and instead of a replacement, they've just placed like
Christmas.
Like
ornaments or
Christmas
something?
garlands in the back.
It's like, what?
Yeah, things billowing smoke. Even before they pull into town, you could see in the back windows just smoke coming out everywhere.
And I think right now is probably the best time. They pull into quote-unquote town, okay? And this whole episode is like implying that they're in Mexico, and I'm really excited to see Walker break into Mexico and rescue his girl, because that's the highest stakes this show ever has.
Yeah, like blown apart.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when Walker goes nuts. That's when he does anything he has to do. That's what I'm really looking forward in this episode. But to see him break into Mexico to do it, that's a whole nother thing. It's kind of like Lone Wolf McQuaid. He does the same thing. So let's talk about quote-unquote Mexico, It looks like they filmed in Texas in the spring or something like that, because there's green grass everywhere. The only thing to give you the context that you're in Mexico, as Evan just said, is the music. So like, if we play mariachi music, they're in Mexico, right?
And old cars too. Like they're driving an old car, and then they pull in, there's like a bunch of really old cars. It's like, this looks more like Cuba.
Yeah.
If anyone was on the crew when they filmed this, let us know if they actually filmed this in Mexico.
If they filmed any part of this, my money is on not a single frame is in Mexico, which is fine. I mean,
Yeah.
So while they're driving into town, we get a tiny bit of Gage's backstory, and this episode is all about dishing out a little bit of backstory, but not getting very deep before anything else happens.
Yeah, I was actually excited because I was like, man, we're going to get some Walker lore in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
For multiple characters, but we really don't.
Yep.
They just start and then quickly just get interrupted by something else. It's like,
so in this one, Walker's driving the truck. Gage offered to drive, but Walker's like, oh, hell no, you're not driving. I'm driving. I'm Walker.
No way. Yeah.
So Walker's at the wheel. Trevette is in the passenger side. And, I mean, Gage is riding bitch.
He's in the middle, yep.
Nobody's talking because it's kind of a really serious thing. I mean, Sydney's captured. Walker's fiance is kidnapped. So Walker's serious. And Gage starts, like, gossiping like a schoolgirl about his past when you got the two toughest guys in Texas there driving down to Mexico to save their girls.
Yeah, he's like, oh man, if they ever do anything to Sydney. But let me tell you about that first time that we worked together. We actually were undercover for 9 months together, and it was huge. And if they do anything to her, And Trevette's all like, easy, Gage, easy.
yeah,
But it's like, no one's around. You can say what you'll do. Like, you guys are all breaking the law in Mexico right now.
he doesn't want to get too personal. He wants them to stay focused on the mission.
And I really was waiting. All he had to say was one more line, and we had actual lore of Sydney and Gage. But all we get is, oh, they were undercover.
Yep.
That's it.
For like 6 months or something.
Yep, that's it.
There's no meat on that bone.
Well, no, maybe we're just supposed to read between the lines because their first assignment, they were undercover together for like 6 or 9 months or something. So, think about it.
That's it, though. That's it.
What cover are we talking about? Undercovers?
Hey, maybe more than one. You decide.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's get into the fanfic.
No. We don't decide. We don't decide. The Walker Facebook groups decide.
Okay.
Or the fanfics.
Yeah, we'll put that out.
Yeah.
Back to Casa Diablo and Cruz Ortega. He's entertaining calls right now, and he gives a call to some dude in a federal vehicle, it would appear. Now, I was under the impression this guy was a senator, mostly because the license plate on the car read Senate 6. Details later on in the episode would imply that he isn't, because nobody recognizes him as a senator.
Right.
But he must be an aide or something to a senator.
Maybe he's Canadian. He's a fan of the Ottawa Senators hockey team.
Good call. That could be it, too.
Could be.
It could be
Long
it.
shot, but maybe.
Yep. He's just flying in from Canada. Okay. Well, anyways, this guy's cruising around, and he clearly has, he's a pretty...
connected guy.
And also, he's spent some time at Casa Diablo, such that he even seems to really have the hots for Maria, who's there. And Ortega's all like, hey, man, we can definitely get the drugs that you need so that we can funnel them into the States for you. But I want you to come down and just have a party with me.
Right. And I might add that this guy's name is Frank.
Yep. In case you ever thought like, well, the name Frank, that's just not formal enough. And he's just not classy enough. Frank uses the phrase, oh, yeah, that sounds great. You can, quote, fax me the particulars, end quote.
Particulars.
At which point we know he's an executive.
Yeah, he means business. He's a businessman.
Yeah, he's definitely on the cutting edge.
This is 2000. We had email by then. We had text messaging by then, maybe. I mean, phew. He's sticking with the facts, though.
Yeah, man. It's confidential.
Classy dude.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we know that this highbrow client is now going to be coming into Casa Diablo pretty soon for a party. And Walker and company, they make it into town in their smoking vehicle and just barely make it into town. And if you were wondering if they barely made it into town, they say 2 lines that say, well, we just barely made it. And wow, that car couldn't go any further.
Now, are they in a Mexican town or just a normal town?
That's irrelevant because there are horses outside of a bar and there are 7 of them. And Walker knows right off the bat that those horses belong to Ortega's men and that one of the horses is for Walker. How he knows that, I don't know, but...
They're like, oh, the 7 horsemen. That must be Ortega's men. It's like...
Yep.
Oh, because there are 7 horses? That must be his guys? What?
Apparently, clearly he only has 7... accomplices.
Right. Or they edited out a scene where one of them looked through a bar window.
What did Walker say about Santana? He's known he's
horses. Known 6 great horses in his life, and this one's 5 of them.
So maybe the other one was one of these guys.
It's possible.
Okay.
Well, regardless, they set the horses free, causing the bad guys to come out of the bar in a disgruntled fashion. And this was like the most cartoonish scene ever. This guy comes out like this giant dude in like a leather vest, and he's like, "Our horses! Who set them free?" And of course, in typical fashion, and I think this deserves its own hashtag. I was trying to figure out what to call it. I think I want to call it like a gravity strike.
I think it's hashtag up on the roof,
where a ranger just drops down onto someone.
No, it's hashtag up on the roof.
They could be on a roof, but often they're not. Like they've been on a storage unit. They've been on other stuff too.
Coming out of trees.
Yeah. Yep. Trees.
Hashtag drop down.
Oh my god. So anyways, a couple of rangers rain down from the sky. And Ranger Rain. I like that.
Hashtag Ranger Rain. I like that.
Yeah. It's raining rangers right now. And they make pretty short work of these guys too. They tie them to some posts just like the last one.
Yeah, and they get up on their horses, and Walker's like, "If you call Ortega and tell him that I took your horses, you know what he'll do to you, so you better not."
And while they're saddling up the 3 horses that they're going to use, Gage is like, "Trevette, how did you get partnered with Walker?"
And again, we're going to get some backstory here.
All right, some backstory. This is great. Trevette is like, well, Walker heard all about my arrest history, and, it was my great personality that won him over. And Gage is like, wow, really? And Trevette's like, no.
Trevette's actually laying on some sick sarcasm. We don't see him be sarcastic ever. This might be a first.
He's talking down.
Right.
To Gage, right?
He is sarcastic, but then he says, no, really, like Walker was a really hard nut to crack, and it took weeks for us to get to know each other. And Gage is like, wow, really? And that again, Trevette's like, it was my lovely charm that wore him down. But that time he's not being sarcastic, even though it's the same line.
Yeah.
And before we learn anything about it, boom, away from this backstory.
Right. They could have had like, yeah, well, we went out to do trivia night, and that's when we really finally bonded. Or, it was really when we played our first Magic the Gathering game that it really all came together.
Solved our first case, that kind of thing.
He kind of was against D&D because he thought I was a Satanist, but once he started playing, he realized it was just for fun.
Okay. Hard cut to some girl time now. We're back in the captive quarters of
Casa Diablo.
With Alex and Sydney.
And they're in like what looks to be like a guest bedroom, like handcuffed to the beds.
Twin beds, though. Not that nice.
This is the cheapest hotel room they can get for shooting this.
Right.
Alex is all like, man, we're in a real tough spot, but Walker's going to come to save us. Sydney, how'd you get into law enforcement after all? And it's like, we just did a hard cut from one backstory scene to another now. And Sydney's all like, well, I just really like reading detective novels. And Alex is like, that's what did it? And Sydney was like, well, no, what it really was, and then the door busts open. Oh, man. And Ortega's there, and he's all like, all right, well, you guys can take a shower or something, and Maria will help you, but only one at a time. And Sydney leaves. And Ortega's all like, your Walker's, he's dead. He's not coming for you. And she's like, what? He's dead? And he's like, yeah, we killed him in a gunfight. And she's all like, he's not dead. And Ortega's like, well, I'm going to kiss you anyways. And she's like, what? And then Sydney comes back out because she knows there's a game afoot. Ortega sucker punches her. And their nice living arrangement has quickly turned quite hostile.
Right. And let's just say that Cruz Ortega, he was going in for more than kissing. If Sydney didn't come back, it could have gotten a little more nefarious than that.
He was getting a little handsy, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a drug lord.
cut back to Walker and Trevette and Gage. They're on their horses riding across the countryside, and Walker again has to consult his map. Now, I will say the prop they used for this map is a real map of Nuevo Laredo, but I've paused it multiple times to sort of ground truth with Google Maps as to what the locations he was referring to on the map were. Those don't exist, and they're sort of cleverly penned on.
So they're like, no one's going to do screenshots of this.
Right. This is on live TV. No one can pause this.
Right.
Just get it good enough. And so somebody definitely just sort of like scribbled on there, and it looks pretty good, but it's definitely someone hand drew it onto the map.
Yeah, and I remember in some episodes of Walker, they have newspaper clippings, and they're like, "Oh, here's the bad guy," and you literally can see that they pasted over a printout over a real newspaper. Yeah. So this is, it's down and dirty TV, and that's why we love Walker.
Yeah, for sure. So they consult the map again, and while they're consulting the map, the heat gets turned up because we see 2 Jeeps behind a grove of trees, and they're spying on Walker and Co. with binoculars. So they're like, oh man, it's Walker. I can't believe they made it this far. And they're like, It's okay. We'll get him.
Right, and we might add that Cruz Ortega has instructed multiple levels of his drug empire to watch out for Walker coming into Mexico. So he knows Walker's going to come.
Now, his end game is clearly that he wants to capture Walker alive and then murder him. But, I don't think Walker's having any of that. Somehow, the 3 guys on horseback give the dudes in Jeeps with binoculars the slip.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he's coming up here, guys, get ready. And the guys in Jeeps are like, all right, let's get in the Jeeps. And while they're getting in the Jeeps, they're like, where'd he go? And then they start driving the Jeeps. And then suddenly Walker is behind them with a pistol.
On a horse.
I should also say that in the middle of this, in between these scenes, Alex and Sydney get the backstory from Maria. And the most complete backstory in this whole show is from Maria.
Yeah,
She
is.
basically was kidnapped from her village. She tried to go back to the village, and her dad was killed. And that's her story, which is tragic.
And the undercurrent, too, is they don't want to say the R word, but it's implied multiple times that she was raped in this episode.
Yeah, she definitely has the most tragic backstory of all these people. And not only that, and I think in real life she'd be suffering from like Stockholm Syndrome or something like that.
We get a backstory, but it's for a character we're never going to see again. Why won't you guys give us a tasty morsel about Gage, Sydney, Trevette, anybody?
No, tune in next week to see that. So cut back to the dudes in Jeeps, and they must have been distracted by Maria's backstory because they have lost sight of the Rangers entirely. Don't know how. And they're like, oh, they gave us the slip. Let's go find them. So they start driving out with their machine guns. And this is classic Walker, where it's like these open air vehicles with some dude hanging off the back with a gun. And as they turn the corner, you see the 3 Rangers on horses pull in behind them, ready to take them out. And classic vehicle chase here. Some serious vehicular transference between horse and car.
There are 2.
None of them are Walker.
Both from 2 separate horses onto the same vehicle.
Yep. So Gage and Trevette both go horse to the back of one of these Jeeps. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. It's still impressive.
And meanwhile, Walker pursues the other Jeep, and they're shooting at him, but he is lazily dodging bullets, which, at his experience level is totally doable.
He's kind of like the Flash or Quicksilver or Superman. He can move so fast he goes between the bullets.
Yeah, some serious Neo stuff, and
More on that later, too, by the way.
Yeah, and he basically with a couple of shots takes out the driver with his gun, and the Jeep flips over, and he just sort of sits there watching the Jeep flip over. I expected the Jeep to explode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Didn't.
I was really disappointed. And especially the way they waited for it to just continue to roll, and they kept the camera on it. And I'm like, what do we wait? I mean, if it did explode after that, it would be completely unbelievable, but still kind of disappointed it didn't happen.
Yeah. It remains to be seen if they save that for elsewhere in the episode. But but normally that Jeep would have exploded.
This is later season. Maybe they didn't explode vehicles as much.
Okay.
Nah, they did. They did
Nah, come on, man. Of course they did. Yeah. So they hijack the red Jeep here. They leave the other guys behind, and the three of them hijack the red Jeep. They're like, well, what's the next move? And Walker's like,
next step, Casa Diablo.
Right. I was waiting for a plan.
Next stop, Casa Diablo.
Yeah, like every time they're like, "Oh, we're going to Casa Diablo." That's the plan. Like they said that a few times.
Yeah,
It's like that's not a plan. That's a destination.
dude, they don't need a plan.
Yeah, the destination is Casa Diablo. The plan is we're going to go there.
Right.
Cut to Casa Diablo. And we know it's Casa Diablo, and we know it's in Mexico because they have 2 Mexican flags out front that are flying. So,
Wouldn't you change it up? Wouldn't you put like I'm a drug lord on one flag and then the Mexican flag on the other?
Yeah, like a pirate flag or something on one.
Yeah, that would have been way cooler if it was a pirate flag. But it was 2 Mexican flags. It's redundant.
It is, yeah.
But maybe we need it to overcome the green grass underneath those flags.
we needed it. We definitely needed it.
Anyway, the Casa Diablo, it does have some like arching Mexican-ish.
It's like an Adobe mansion with ceramic roof tiles.
There you go.
Right. If we want to get into it, that's what it is.
And we do.
Yeah.
We're already there.
We have.
We're already there.
We don't want to, but we have. So
We're already in there.
it has a courtyard out front with a fountain, and then out back it's got an enormous courtyard with a pool
Very
and
nice.
A mariachi band.
Very tasteful.
So Frank comes in. If we recall, Frank is the government aide. He comes in a helicopter with a couple other friends of his, and Cruz Ortega is like, boy, so great to see you, bro. We're going to show you some serious Mexican hospitality. And he's like, oh, I expect no less, but I also want some drugs. And Ortega's like, we'll get you those too, no worries. But tonight, we party. Remember Maria? She can't wait to see you.
They're pimping out Maria to drug lords from America. And Frank came in with his whole posse. There was like this other skeezy drug lord who looked amazingly Walker villainish. And then a guy who kind of looked like Mr. T, who we never see again. And I wish we saw him again.
I think Trevette Ninja kicks him, actually.
I want his backstory because they say, hey, oh, this is so-and-so. And they're like, hey, and that's it with him.
Pretty much. So Frank comes in and they're like, dude, tonight we're going to party. We're throwing a rager. And we're all like, okay, tonight is when the Rangers are going to strike. Of course. But meanwhile, Ortega comes in to the hostage quarters again, and he basically has some wardrobe suggestions for Alex and Sydney for the evening's festivities. And they're like, I can't believe you want us to wear this. Are you serious? And he's like, yeah, but don't worry. Maria's going to help you put it on. You're good.
Right. Here's some, it's network TV, so it can't be too scandalous, but we're going to show your shoulders.
We're also going to ask you to do a lot of running and martial arts in this, so it has to be functional in that sense as well. So, yeah, they have to wear those, and then they're basically carted down to this party. And, the party is a veritable who's who of extras. There's a mariachi band. There are a whole bunch of people milling about. This is when I realized that Frank was not a senator, because why would a senator be seen at a drug lord's compound by hundreds of people?
Right.
The party starts during the day, and Walker and company, they pull up and they're like, oh, Casa Diablo, there it is. And we see the 2 Mexican flags. We know it's Casa Diablo.
Right.
See, Adam, that's why they have 2 Mexican flags, because if it was 1 Mexican flag, that could be any house in Mexico. But 2 Mexican flags, Casa Diablo.
You know it. And they just roll up on the outskirts of the property, right? They're like right on the line of the forest.
In their bright red Jeep.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, well, this is the place. Let's do it. And so they just like run into the woods, and it's like, okay, they're going to start striking now.
I'm like, okay, wait, they're attacking during the day? Okay, it's going down right now.
Yeah.
All right, so let's break this down here. Your fiance has been kidnapped by a Mexican drug lord and taken to a place called Casa Diablo. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right. You finally get to Casa Diablo. It's daytime. You don't know if she's still alive. Do you go in or do you wait it out?
I'd set up camp.
Well, I think at this point it's pretty obvious that a party's going on because,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, what we're saying is that they don't go in.
Right. And this tracks with me logically for Walker. We're going to wait till nightfall so we can make the attack. So if that tracks, let's move on.
Exactly.
Because that's when they go in.
Yeah. So nightfall, the party's just getting more of a rager, and Ramon is like, I need to see Sydney because she and I, there's been some weird tension between us, mostly because I tried to kill her. And
But I think there's something there. Yeah.
yeah,
Right,
there's
right.
definitely something there. So
Yeah.
so let's have drinks and just, bury the hatchet here.
What they do is more like a drinking conversation.
Yeah.
A drinking competition, really.
Right. And Ramon's all like, well, you say you fight like a man. Do you drink like a man? And she's like, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
She basically has a little drinking competition with him, but she basically tricks him into thinking that she's drinking a lot more shots than she is. And he's getting completely hammered. And so,
Classic.
upper hand, Sydney, 100%.
Right.
Meanwhile, Frank is all like, dude, Cruz, you look like you're on edge. What's going on? And Cruz is like, nothing I can't handle. It's just my crews that are out there trying to get Walker, they're not calling me back, but it's fine. No biggie.
Yeah, what could go wrong,
Right. Just party on.
Probably nothing to worry about.
All right. And Alex is sitting at a table alone in a skimpy dress, and this creepy, skeezy guy with the most obscene facial hair
That's just really good.
comes up to her. He's all like, hey, remember me? You put me away in prison. And she's like, yeah, well, clearly it didn't work because you're out now. And he's like, I can help you get out of this situation if you, help me out. And he touches her and she punches him in the face. And he's like, oh, man. Oh, he stands up and then Cruz is behind him and punches him in the face, too, because, apparently Alex is now Cruz's lady. I don't know.
Right.
And Cruz gets real upset and pulls out one of his throwing knives and stabs this dude in the most dramatic fashion ever.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll be making a gif of this, don't worry. And the guy would be like, ah! That's great.
He stabs him in the heart, and then all the people there are like, what is going on? And he's like, yeah, party's over.
Do you think okay, let me pose a question. Do you think all the people at the party, they're all having a great time? A lot of them are just dancing with their partners. Do you think they have any idea they're at a drug lord's house? And if they don't, do you think they figured it out when a dude was stabbed in the heart?
Yeah, I mean, that was the breaking point for sure. But I think in that situation, it's a drug lord's house. You got to.
There are guys walking around with machine guns, I guess.
Yeah. Well, let me answer your question with another question. Do you think any of them would have cared or just been like, no, it's cool. We can keep partying. You just, get rid of the body.
Yeah.
Right. Keep the music going. Keep the drinks flowing. It's all good.
They're like, okay, this party's over. And it's like, all right, great. This is when the Rangers are going to come in.
Right.
But cut to dawn?
Yeah.
Right.
Morning, I guess.
What happened to the strike at night?
Cut to 11 in the morning? I don't know.
They fell asleep out in the woods.
I guess this is when the Rangers decide to strike because maybe everyone's really tired from the party. So they strike, and there are a lot of sleeper holds. They take out some dudes by this makeshift armory thing. It's basically just a bunch of sandbags with grenades and stuff in boxes on the inside.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that. It's like, what is this little shed? It's like a TNT shed.
Yeah, it had a TNT logo on the door. And the moment I walked up to it, I was like, yes. I don't know what this is, but it can only spell explosion.
Yeah, so they exploded the shed as a diversion, but I think they also took a bunch of grenades and stuff out of it too.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah,
So
Walker
great.
goes into the shed, right? And Gage and Trevette are outside, and Walker's tossing them
oh yeah,
artillery.
he didn't pull the pin or anything. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
he was,
but
he was
still.
a kid in a candy store in there.
He was saving up for a rainy day.
Yeah, so he grabbed all the grenades and passed them out. He set up a little bit of TNT there with a fuse. And if you're like, man, how does he know how to do this? We learned from an episode quite a while ago that when he was an Army Ranger, he studied demolitions.
Yeah, he was an explosive specialist.
He knows all about firing pins, all that stuff. That was from The Patriot.
Oh, that's when he rewires the bombs.
And blows the guy out the window with a landmine. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, so we know that he's an expert in this kind of thing. So they basically run out of the shed, and they've got a fuse set. The trap is laid, and they just have to wait for exactly the right moment to set off this bomb. And that exact moment is right when Ramon is getting creepy on Sydney.
Yeah.
And they couldn't have set off this bomb a moment too soon.
No.
Because he's about to put the moves on Sydney, and it's real gross. And they blow some stuff up, and then it's all hands on deck.
Alex goes, "That's Walker."
Yep. She's like, "Oh, Walker's here." Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. She was there when everything got blown up and blown apart. Like, she knows, like, oh, yeah, Walker, he brings explosions.
Yeah. The closer the explosions get, the safer I am.
Yeah, pretty much. They blow that thing up, and all hell breaks loose on the grounds. While everyone's distracted, Maria comes in for the save. She frees Alex and Sydney, and a lot more sleeper holds, a lot more ninja kicks. Everyone's fighting everybody. Guns get pulled on everybody, and people get bailed out by each other. A gun gets pulled on Gage, and Sydney actually kicks it out of a dude's hand. And then someone pulls a gun on Sydney, and then Alex comes out, and she pulls a Juggernaut move where she gets a big tree branch and slugs a dude with it. But then just like in Juggernaut, she gets punched in the face and she's down. So
Yeah.
that's kind of her trademark move. Come in, distract for a second, then get knocked to the ground. I wish with all the self-defense training and being paired up with Walker, she became more of a formidable force in the fighting realm. I feel like she could.
Walker knowledge.
Yeah, I feel like she could. Let's face it, she could.
Give the show another 10 seasons. It would get there.
Yeah. So these guys all get taken out. Ramon is about to shoot Sydney, but she jumps, does a somersault, grabs a gun in mid-somersault, and shoots Ramon. So he's out.
Yeah. Drug Lord's brother is dead.
Right. His second brother is dead, because in the first episode, his first one got killed by Walker. That's why this whole thing came to be in the first place.
They're going fast.
So then Cruz Ortega, he's like, "What? You just killed my brother. I'm going to kill you, Sydney, but I'm going to start with your feet." And he's like about to shoot her in the foot or something. And that's when Alex comes out, hits him with like a pipe, and then he punches her down. And then he's about to take her again, and Walker comes in and kicks the gun out of his hand. And this is where Walker really shows his skills in the fighting realm. I would say Ortega handles himself well, but really not so much.
Chuck Norris is short. And then you get a guy who's like at least a foot shorter than Chuck Norris.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. What do you expect us to believe here? But we've seen him with knives, so we know he's good with a knife. So maybe there's a payoff to all that needling of the knife through the last 2 episodes here. But Walker keeps pummeling Cruz Ortega, and Cruz Ortega keeps getting up. I'm waiting for it to be like, oh, this is over. This is over. He keeps getting up to take these kicks and punches from Walker.
He gets knocked to the ground one final time. That's when he opts for the less noble approach to the fight. And that's when he opts for bringing a weapon into the game. What happens, Bob?
That's glorious. That's glorious. So as we've seen earlier in this episode and previous episodes, Ortega, he fancies the throwing knives.
Yeah.
He's pretty good at it. He throws a lot at targets, always hits the bullseyes, killed a couple people that way. So we know that's his fatality move. He gets knocked down one last time, and then he gets up, throws the knife directly at Walker. And I think didn't
it cuts to Alex going, "No!"
And there's like a sound.
And it happened so fast, I didn't bother to rewind it, but
how could you not rewind this, dude?
I mean,
I watched it a couple times.
I want to observe it in real time. When you watch this in 2000 on TV, you didn't have DVR, okay?
True.
You're a purist.
I'm a purist. I'm watching
Nice.
it as
All
is.
right. Yep.
And what seemed to happen in my eyes was that Walker somehow caught the knife in midair, kind of did a quick spin, and immediately threw it back at Ortega. And of course, got him good.
That's what happened. Yep. Yep.
I wasn't sure if he caught it by the blade, if they just kind of blew right through it and just made you assume that he caught the knife and threw it back.
That's more like it. Yeah. This is where the editing team is like,
how are we gonna? Yeah.
Let's just capitalize on the imagination of the viewer.
Let's just make this happen fast.
Yep.
And we'll let people.
Yep. So Walker catches the knife midair, does a 180 spin, and delivers the knife right back at Cruz Ortega into his heart, and he's out. That guy's out.
He lived by the knife. He died by the knife.
Yeah, man. He's living on the edge, as they say.
Ooh,
and he can't keep himself from falling, right?
You don't take a knife to a Walker fight.
So true. So, yeah, this is my favorite part of the episode because, all is happy. All the drug lords are dead. And they're like, okay, well, let's go back home. And then Maria comes out of nowhere.
Oh, no.
And Alex and Sydney are like, oh, Maria, what are you going to do now? And she's like, I'm going to go back to my village. Oh. And then she just like prances away.
Right. It's like, I've been captured by drug lords. They've been pimping me to other drug lords.
My dad was murdered in front of my eyes at my home village. Everyone here just died. And I'm just going to go back. It's cool. It's awesome. It's great.
This is what Walker does in the last 2 minutes, turns it to a happy ever after ending, and that's the vibe. And then they usually throw in some jokes. And here's where they throw in a joke between Gage and Sydney. Like, he's like, oh, man, good thing I was here to save you. And Sydney's like, oh, no, I saved you, bro. And that's kind of like the little joke there.
Then they're like, how are we going to get home? And Walker's like, oh, just take Ortega's helicopter. And Tourette's like, you know how to fly that? And Walker's like, it beats walking.
Yeah, of course he knows how to fly a helicopter. I mean, he knows explosives. He knows how to break horses. He's worked on an oil rig. What else?
He can do it all.
Teacher.
He can do it all.
All the while in this scene, too, they're having this like happy vibe of like, oh, we survived. Yay.
Hell yeah.
She's free.
Hell yeah.
The drug lord with a knife through his heart is like in the foreground of the shot. Masterfully done. Love it.
So end scene, that episode and this two-parter is mercifully over. Well, that about sums up this episode. We'd love to give a shout out to our friend and collaborator, Adam Lauritsen, who's been drawing the amazing Walkerstrations that are featured on our social media. Be sure to check out his other art on Instagram at @Imagination_Run_Amok. When we come back, it'll be time for us to each rate Showdown at Casa Diablo Part 2 on a scale of 0 to 10 boots to the face, resulting in our patented Roundhouse rating, which you can find the complete results of on our website, roundhouseroulette.com. Don't go away. Ah, Frank, amigo. ¿Cómo está? How was your flight?
I hate helicopters. But for you...
I appreciate the sacrifice. Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette's new headquarters, Casa Diablo. Tonight, I promise you, I will show you true Mexican hospitality.
Listen, Ortega. Me and the boys can move hundreds of podcasts a month. But we gotta have product, compadre.
And you'll have it.
No disrespect, but Roundhouse Roulette has been behind schedule ever since you kidnapped Bob, Evan, and Adam. We've been left high and dry.
I know. It's just we ran into a rough patch with summer vacations and all. It's been taken care of. They'll never leave the basement again. But enough talk about business. We here at Roundhouse Roulette's Casa Diablo have pledged to deliver the light of Walker, Texas Ranger, to the world. If you'd like to join us in that mission, please share the podcast with a friend or leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts. It truly helps other Walkerites find the cast. If you'd like to further support the show, be sure to check out our fine apparel and vintage action figures on roundhouseroulette.com or join the fun on our Patreon page. Most importantly, thank you for listening.
I thought you said business was over.
Would you have sat through an advertisement otherwise?
Well, I guess not.
Damn right. Now let me show you my new throwing knives. Welcome back. That was gruesome. Let me tell you what I thought about this episode.
Okay. Go on. Go on. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I thought this episode much better than the first Casa Diablo. This one actually holds its own as a standalone. And I just want to unpack something. That knife thing at the end. What was that? Like,
awesome.
They built this guy up, right? They built this guy up like he was some sort of supervillain. And as the episode began and like we saw him throw his knife at the target again, I was like, man, it's too bad that Walker isn't like the type of show where like Walker would catch the knife and throw it back. That's like way too like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like he wouldn't do that. He's never done that in another episode. And so this fight comes along and I was like, yeah, he won't even like knock the knife away. Like that's not the kind of action the show has. So this fight comes along and it's progressing and it goes on pretty long.
Ortega takes a lot of kicks.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess they just won't even bring the knife into it. Then Ortega pulls out this knife and I'm like, what is happening? And before I know it, Walker is snagging a knife, flying at him out of midair and doing a
little whirly-do.
Yep, and completely delivering a throwing knife straight to this dude's heart. And at that point, I was in.
Did you stand up and applaud like I did?
I laughed for sure. I was like, what just happened? Oh, man.
Yeah.
So that alone, I mean, redonk.
One of the best moments of Walker on film.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was ridiculous when he body slammed the guy who played Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat movies into oblivion. But yeah, this was pretty ridiculous. Yeah, so that alone, complete like legend style move right there. And the rest of the episode actually had quite a bit of action for what it was. So I give it pretty high ratings. I don't think it's like the best Walker episode I've ever seen, and I don't think it like ranks even top 10 that I've seen. But right. I would say that this thing is pretty solid, and for a later season episode, quite good. I would give this one a 7 for sure.
Okay, I'm right there with you, and I actually gave last week's episode a 7. It might have not had as much action or something as epic as the return knife throw in this episode, but last episode, we got like Walker breaking 27 horses and building a fence in a day, like a whole corral in a day by himself. There was definite Walker lore. But this episode, it didn't have as many awesome idiosyncrasies as the first part of this series. It was more like they took the last 10 minutes of a Walker episode and stretched it over 40 minutes, which is kind of what you pray for. I'm going to stick with the 7 rating.
I agree that this episode is better than last week's. I gave last week's a 7. I'm going to have to bump this one up to an 8. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Something we didn't discuss during the during the episode discussion.
I love it.
There's one little tidbit that I wrote down and we didn't bring up. Once Walker and Trevette and Gage, they're on their little journey. They got the horses and then the Jeep and everything. Walker is dressed in all black, and he has a bullet belt on.
That's right. I forgot. Yeah. That's his siege outfit.
Yeah, siege outfit. Also, like black metal Walker, and that pushes it up to an 8 for me right there. Everything else is true. I agree with everything else you guys said. The bullet belt really makes it.
That's the only provision he took going into Mexico. They didn't have any provisions. They had no food, no water, no weapons. They didn't even have a vehicle.
But he had a bullet belt and dressed in black.
Okay.
Which obviously is, great. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there you go.
It's perfect for a nighttime strike. It's even better for a strike in the middle of the day.
Yeah. Or early morning, as the case may be. Who knows? For some reason.
Unbelievable.
Well, all right. That was long-winded, but it gives this episode a roundhouse rating of 7.666 boots to the face. Ah! Nice. And I think we can all agree that this episode proves that even after 8 seasons, the show can still surprise us.
There's still some meat on that bone.
Mm-hmm. But let us know what you think on social media or by emailing us at roundhouseroulette@gmail.com. When we come back, we'll spin that roundhouse roulette wheel and select the next episode. All right, we're back. Bob, you ready to spin that thing?
Let's do this.
Oof.
Oh, no.
Season 9, Episode 13, Division Street. Is this the one with Hulk Hogan?
Oh, my God, it
damn,
might
I
be.
hope so.
It might be. Walker starts a basketball league to help settle a rivalry between local street gangs. Hulk Hogan guest stars.
Bravo.
Excellent.
All right. Enough said there.
All right. Well, we hope you'll join us next time when we share our reactions to Season 9, Episode 13, Division Street. That's featuring Hulk Hogan, might I add. In the meantime, share your opinions with us on Facebook and Instagram at Roundhouse Roulette and on Twitter at Roundhouse Pod. And please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your fine podcasts. Until next time,
May the eyes of the Ranger be upon you.
When you're in Texas, look behind you. Oh, 'cause that's where the Ranger's gonna be.